Hi everybody, it's Jenny from the Missouri Star Quilt Company, and I've got a really fun project for you today, and it involves Maureen McCormick from the Brady Bunch. She's now making her own fabric, and it's called the Blooming Bunch, and I love that she threw that bunch in there, and it's just so darling and so vintage looking. So to make this quilt, you're going to need one packet of 10-inch squares, and again, we've used the Blooming Bunch. And you're going to need a packet of background squares as well. And we have used navy, but hang on till the end because I have a surprise for you. So we've used the navy for that. And if you want to cut your own squares, it's about 3 yards. So don't be afraid to do that as well. And you're going to need some heat and bond. We used heat and bond light, about 4.5 yards. This first inner border out here is a 2.5-inch border. That's 3/4 of a yard. Your outer border is 6 inches, and that is 1.5 yards. Your backing on this is going to be 5.25 yards. And the quilting pattern that we used on this is called Flutterby. And I love the little butterflies kind of going through the garden. It just looks really, really sweet. So this makes a quilt that is 71 by 85. So let me show you how to make this block because it's really fun. First, we're going to take a square of print like this and a square of solid. We're going to lay these right on top of each other, just like this. And we're going to make sure that they're lined up exactly. And then we're going to cut 2 inches off of 2 sides. So I'm going to lay my ruler right on the edge right here, just like this. I'm going to move this out of the way, and I'm going to line this one here and cut. So 2 inches off of 2 pieces, off of 2 sides. And then what we're going to do is we are going to make this into a half square triangle. So what we want to do is we want to take this and we're going to draw a line corner to corner, and you want to use something that shows up. I happen to have a lighter Sharpie here which shows up, and we're going to cut on that line, so it's not going to be any big deal to use it. But you can use a chalk pencil or anything, or you could actually even draw your line on the other side. Now, before you sew, you want to make sure that these two are right sides together, like this. And we are going to sew on both sides of this line. So 1/4 inch on both sides of this line. And we're going to go down here. And we're going to flip around and come down the other side. All right. So once you get your block sewn, we're going to cut that corner to corner. So you're going to lay your ruler right on that line, and we're just going to cut it right along here. All right, now we're going to square these, and there's 2 different ways to do it, and I'm going to show you those ways. So I have my Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer, and you'll notice this is a larger one. I like that she came out with a larger set, and we are going to lay this, our seam line on her seam line. Now there's going to be very, very little waste, and I actually can't see very well in the navy, so I'm going to flip this over, and I can see now this little sewing line much easier. And I'm going to run it up to 7.5, just like that. Now you can see right here, so little waste, so little waste. So we're just going to trim this off, and we're just going to trim this off. And this is your waste on this right here. So that's how you're going to do it with the Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer. And it's just going to be very little waste. We'll press it to the dark side, and then this block will be ready to go, and it's ready for applique. So I'm going to set that over here. Now the other one, I'm going to go ahead and press open, and we're going to show you how to square that with a regular square ruler. Most of us have a square. And so I'm going to, again, press it to the dark side. And then I have this 10-inch ruler right here. And one of the things that's hard for me with rulers when I'm squaring blocks is if they have a little 1/2 inch on there. You've got to watch that. So watch your ruler if you have a 1/2 inch on there, because it could, it could mess you up. And this one, I'm laying my diagonal line right down the middle, and I'm coming to the 7.5. So here's our 7, and I'm at the 7.5 line, and you can see again, very, very little waste, which I love that. All right, so these are now squared to 7.5. They're pressed, and they're ready to go. And we're going to now grab our little 2-inch pieces that we took off, and we are going to iron those onto our heat and bond. All right, I'm going to do it on this side, and I'm going to cut a 2-inch strip, and I'm going to iron it right onto my fabric. Now, when I had a whole bunch of these going, I like ironed a whole bunch of strips on all at once. And so you can do that if you want to, because we will actually use a couple of different, a couple of strips. Actually, I'm going to need a couple of strips to get all these on here. All right. So here's my second strip. Now, let's lay our fabric on here, and I'm going to lay the navy on this one and the green on this one. And I'm going to need an additional little piece for my other one. And so what that means to me as I'm doing this is that if I had my bigger piece, my 4.5 yard piece, I would actually, you know, cut the size of the strip. I would cut that whole strip and lay 2 on there. But I'm using a little remnant that I have, and so it just means I'm going to need a little bit extra. And so I'm going to put this on here, and I'm going to press this like this. And be very careful not to get my iron on here, because that stuff will get on the bottom of your iron and stick on there. So I've laid my heat and bond with the bumpy side up and pressed down, and it just doesn't take very long. And then we have this piece on here, and I'm going to press that on there. Now I just heard something that's kind of really cool. I heard that if you get sticky stuff on the bottom of your iron, you can use a dryer sheet to get that off. So I actually think that's a pretty good tip. I'm going to cut this piece off here, and then I'm going to iron this piece on here and add this other piece out here. Now, it doesn't matter if these are exactly, you know, if there's a little space in between, because what we're looking for is we're just looking to hold this petal onto the half square triangle while we're doing it. So I'm just going to put these here, and I'm going to press here. All right. So once you get all these pieces ironed on, we are ready to trace our little template. And I have a little mini peel right here. And what you want to remember is that these are both my navy ones, and these are my green ones. I'm going to trim this little end piece off right here. And you need to get 6 out of these. And so we have to be kind of careful. It's pretty easy to do, but I laid them side by side like this, and just traced around it this way. And so you get 1, 2, 3 pretty easily on these. This is the small piece, so you won't have any trouble getting that on the large piece. And I have some traced over here and ready to go, so I can show you the next step. And so right here I have this block that is sewn and ready to be cut. And again, we'll just do the same thing that we did on it, and trim it, cut it, and then square it up so that it's ready to go. This just takes a few minutes, and then I'll show you how we put on those petals. You might be tempted, because it's so such little waste, you might be tempted to skip this part, and you can, but whenever you square a block, it just makes it so go together so much nicer. So I'm just laying this on here, my seam line, and this one is perfect. I mean, just perfect. All right, so now I'm going to press these open with my dark, press to the dark side. So my dark is on the top, my seam lays into the dark side. Then we have these petals here that we're ready to put on, and we're going to put 3 onto the navy like this, just like that. So now we'll put the navy ones on right here, and I'm going to put 3 of those on like this. Now there's a little trick to this, and I want to show you. So I tend to just roll the edge of my paper to get that off. And whenever you have a point, yeah, I'm folding it in like this, and then that piece will just pop up like that. And so again, fold it in, just fold it in a little bit, and see how it just pops right back, and then you can grab a hold of that and take that off. So again, on this, we're just going to fold this up. It's just going to pop off of there. You can peel it, and you're ready to go. Now, when you put these on, you can use any stitch you want. So let's talk about that for a minute. You can use a tiny zigzag. You can use one of those tiny little applique stitch where it's stitch, 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 and then goes over. You can even use a decorative stitch. On mine, if we can get a good shot of this, I used a tiny little zigzag on these. And over here, you can see it a little better. And I actually used invisible thread. Now, when I use invisible thread, my bobbin stays the same. You know, on this one, I kept it gray so that it would work with either color. And then I used this invisible thread and sewed around it. So I didn't have to change my thread with every color because you really don't want that to show. You want the block to be the star, not the stitching, so you want the stitching to go back. Now I did find on some of them, you'll notice that you can really see this invisible thread on this navy. And so on some of them, I switched over to the navy thread, which actually hides a lot better. So I did half of them with the invisible up here and the other half with the navy, and it just worked really, really well. But when you put them on, what you're going to want to do, and I learned this trick from my granddaughter Aislinn, she put in the 2 middle petals like this, and then she put the one on the top like this. What this enables you to do, and why this is key, and I'm going to put these over here the same way. So put your 2 side ones in. Make sure they're far enough away from the corner so you're not going to catch them in the seam like this, and put this one on. But what this enables you to do is if you start right over here stitching, you can stitch here, around here, down there, over here, and around there, and never have to lift up your presser foot. That saves you a ton of time because what I was doing was I was going around here, then I'd cut my thread and I'd go around here, and I'd cut my thread and go around here. But as long as that one petal is in the middle, you're going to start right here or on one of these sides, depending upon whether you're probably right or left-handed, and I'm going to go around here and then up through the middle and then over through here. And so that's a super helpful tip for sewing these down. All right, so I have some things I want to talk to you about because these are half square triangles, which means there are a zillion ways to set these. Now you can see from the quilt behind me, I put 4 of these together with my navies in the middle. So let's look at that. And then I want to talk to you about what happens if. Now, what happens if, this is a square and a square that is very easy to make with a half square triangle. What happens if we turn these and make a pinwheel? What's going to be different in that quilt if we do that? I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. But look how fun this is. Look how fun this is. What happens if we do this like we originally had it, where all the colors are to the middle, and then we put the next row out here like this, and so it frames it, and it makes an around the world. So this keeps going, and it gets bigger and bigger. What happens if we do that? Well, I had a couple of big what happens if thoughts occur to me, and I want to show you this quilt right here, because this quilt is the exact same quilt, only I used white as the background, and I laid it together in a chevron, because that's another thing that we can do with our half square triangles. So Natalie, if you could just come help me hold this, that would be awesome, because this is really pretty. All right, move this chair out of the way. So this is the chevron quilt, and you can see the chevron pattern runs like this. And I used a white as a background, and this is the softest, sweetest quilt. But you can see these are exact same fabrics, exact same blocks, just a different layout. But look what a difference it makes.
Different background fabric.
Different background fabric. So I've got white on this one, I've got navy on this one. Look what a difference. Also, I want to show you, who doesn't love a gingham? And look at the back on this quilt. The gingham back is so darling. It's just so cute. So this is a really fun quilt. It's fun to play with because you have all the half square triangle options are open to you once you make these 2 squares. And I just love it bunches and bunches. So we hope you enjoyed this tutorial on the Vintage Bouquet from the Missouri Star Quilt Company. We hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you are not already part of the Missouri Star Quilt family, you can hit the subscribe button below so you won't miss a thing. And if you click that bell, it'll notify you every time a new tutorial comes out. See you next Friday.